up, everybody? I hope you're all doing well. Today we are checking out the REVV Tilt Boost. This pedal is based on a pedal that I did in conjunction with REVV. It's a signature pedal that was called the Tilt Overdrive. It came out about 11 months ago. This pedal is based on the right side of the pedal, which was essentially a boost with a tilt EQ. Not essentially, that's exactly what it is. When I was beta testing the Tilt Overdrive, especially in Nashville, I was finding that a lot of the Nashville session players especially, they would turn on the drive and they would dig it, and then they would hit the drive with the boost side of the pedal and the tilt EQ, and they would really dig that, and then they would shut off the overdrive and then shut off the boost and then turn the boost right back on because they were missing the complexity that it brought to their overall tone. So I knew at some point we were going to have to release just the right side of the pedal, which would be what is now the Tilt Boost. But I didn't want to just release it as, well, this is just the right side of my Tilt Overdrive. I wanted it to be more. So instead of it having just 12 dB of clean boost, it now has up to 20 dB of clean boost. And I also added a switch that's called a drive switch. And what that does is as you get, maybe to the point of saturation, that you're digging, but you need a little bit more, but you don't want to push your amp that hard, the drive switch will add just a little bit of clipping and push to just give you that saturation without actually hitting the amp harder with just more dBs. We'll definitely get into how that sounds in the demo, but that's I'm one of those guys that just always kind of wants more, and if I can get it easily, that's what I'm after. So that's what's been changed. So instead of 12 dB, you got 20 dB of clean, and you have a drive switch. The tilt EQ itself is exactly the same, as well as the tight switch. Now, if you're not familiar with how a tilt EQ works, it's really simple. As you roll it counterclockwise, you're going to cut lows and add highs. As you roll it clockwise, it's going to do just the opposite. I'm a big workflow guy when it comes to, session work or being on stage. Doesn't matter what it is. I like to really quickly dial in a sound, and the Tilt EQ allows me to do that. We can check it out in the demo, but it's a really great sounding circuit. And then the tight switch is there to just sculpt in lows. So as you get your Tilt EQ set where you want it, you can use the tight switch to quickly kind of further sculpt your low end without changing what you had the Tilt EQ set at, which is really important. We'll get into how that sounds in the demo. So yeah, what's on top is the boost, and then the Tilt EQ on the right, the drive switch, and then that tight switch, and then of course you've got your bypass on the bottom. Pedal friendly jacks on top, as well as the DC. Now, what I did with this pedal in that performance, the challenge was, because this thing sounds killer into other overdrives to push them. I mean, it was designed to push my overdrive. It doesn't argue with overdrives, distortions, and things like that. But I thought the way to really make this a challenge would be to use just one amp for that performance. So the amp I used is my Friedman DS40, and the challenge was to dial it one way, fairly clean actually, and then I don't touch it. I get all of the solo tones, all of the rhythm tones, everything like that has to come from the box. And so when I demo this, I'm going to demo it the same exact way. I haven't changed that amp from when I did the performance, and I'm just going to turn this on and just kind of step through how I dial it. So yeah, without further ado, let's check out my REVV Tilt Boost. Okay, so let's get started. I'm just going to play the guitar into the amp. As I mentioned earlier, I used my Friedman DS40. The challenge was to not change anything on the amp and get all of the sounds from the Tilt Boost. So here's how I've got the amp dialed. So not a lot of breakup there. I will warn you, because we're going to push the amp harder to get certain gain sounds. It might get a little bit louder because I'm not going to try and normalize this whole track. So just, fair warning there. But let's just tweak some things and see what we get. So some just really quick tweaks there, just to give you an idea of you know, what I had going on. It's super versatile. Obviously, I know this pedal really well. Where I started was what I would consider kind of a clean, always on thing. So we're not really pushing the amp, a little bit, but really just kind of an always on clean thing. So with the drive switch off and the tight switch in the middle, so we're not cutting any lows whatsoever, we can go from this, which is a good sound, to something a little bit more complex sounding. Now, just without touching anything, if I felt like, oh man, it needs less low end, but I really like what's happening in the top end, if I turn this tilt EQ to the left to take out lows, it will add highs, and that's why the tight switch is there, so I can just cut the lows without changing my tone stack, essentially. So now it's the same top end. I mean, I really like it in the center when I'm playing by myself, but in a track that would probably take up too much space. Or I can cut just a little. So that's a more subtle cut. Now this tight switch will work. This doesn't change what happens with the tight switch, but it will change what you perceive from the tight switch. Obviously, if you're rolling a bunch of lows out, then the tight switch isn't really going to have an effect. As you get over to the other side, like say we want this warmer, like maybe there, but we don't want to change the top end, tight switch is way more apparent. Subtle cut, or in the middle. So it's just really, really useful for sculpting in low end. So let me just do this. I'm just going to sweep this tilt EQ to make sure you guys understand it. As I go to the left, way more highs, way less lows. The opposite is I go the other way. So check it out. That's what I did with that 12-string track. Oh, I guess I didn't do that on camera. Anyways, it was a 12-string track happening on the left side of the mix. So check that out, maybe put on ears. But anyways, that's what I did. I rolled it all the way to the left, chime it out, and I also went ahead and cut all the lows. So it almost turned this into like a matchless kind of thing, right? Okay, I'm digressing. So that's all the way to the left. Let's go all the way to the right. So it's not overly active, but it definitely does the job. That's there to just, in a workflow situation, just quickly either fix an amp that you're on a gig with that isn't happening, or just sculpt in a tone on a session or quickly on stage just to get you where you need to be without touching your tone stack, right? So that's what that's doing. That's what the tight switch is doing. Let's look at just boosting a bit. So this is 20 dB of clean boost, and with this, you know, I dimed it into that amp, and it really, I mean, 20 dB of boost is a lot. So, you know, get the gain you want. It depends on your amp as far as how it's going to respond to that much input, but it's something you want to be cognitive of as you're cranking it. If it starts doing weird clipping things where it's like the amp kind of sags, or it means you're really hitting it too hard. But right now we're about halfway up. We're pushing the amp pretty good. Especially if I go to like a back humbucker. Now, maybe that's a little too much low end, but I like where the tilt is. Now it's tighter. So you can hear that it definitely can push the front end of an amp, because I mean, this is pretty clean, especially if I don't turn the volume up. can still sculpt as I, turn this up. That's another reason the tilt EQ is there, is as you add that much boost to the front of an amp, you're going to get low end anomalies. So I can either use the tight switch or I can roll the tilt to tighten it up. So it works great for that, super dialable. And yes, I'm biased. This is my pedal, so. Okay, so it does work really well for that. Now we haven't engaged the drive switch. So let's say we're sitting about here, and I don't want to push the amp any harder. I just want a little bit of clipping to add some saturation for maybe a solo tone. Check it out. Maybe I want that to sound a little fatter. We are cutting lows, which is going to bring out highs and mids, at least the perception. So maybe do this. In the upper position, it's a little fatter, but it's not as subby, so single notes will sound fatter. If that's maybe still a little too bright, I can go this way. If that's maybe a little too much low, then I'll go ahead and cut lows here. So now it's not quite as toppy, a little warmer. So right there is pushing the amp too hard. Did you hear that? So that's where I would back off. So about right there. So that is my Tilt Boost by REVV Amps. I'm really proud of it. I hope you guys dig it. Obviously, you're just hearing it straight into an amp. I designed it also to sound, well, Dan Trudeau designed it along with me to also obviously sound great into other overdrive pedals. But I really wanted to show you what this could do just hitting one amp, kind of run and gun. It's capable of quite a bit. So as always, I really appreciate you guys watching. I hope you dig this pedal as much as I like it, and we will see you next time.